I'm excited to be joined by today's presenter, Danny Silverman. Danny leads product and corporate marketing at Clavis Insights. He's an established industry thought leader with over 14 years of experience helping brand manufacturers grow online presence and sales. Prior to joining Clavis Insights, he led the sales, strategy, and support practice at Catapult eCommerce. Before that, he spent 8 years at Johnson & Johnson, where he was responsible for spearheading J&J's e-commerce strategy and capability. Danny, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Today we're talking about applying 6P's e-commerce intelligence specifically to Amazon. So we'll spend a few minutes on the 6P's e-commerce intelligence framework first for those who haven't had a chance to listen in on our prior webinars or download information on it. If you do want to get into more detail, our 6P's white paper will be available to all attendees on today's call. But we're going to spend the time today applying those 6P's specifically to Amazon. I probably don't have to ask this question. Most of us probably know this inherently, that Amazon is what's driving the world of e-commerce and retail in general. But if you're looking for some new data points or some extra data points on why I care about Amazon, more than half of shoppers start their product searches on Amazon, and there's now numerous studies out on this that validate it, whether it's Forrester, whether it's Bloomreach, or otherwise. But what's amazing is that product search is 2 times the rate of search engines and 3 times versus traditional retailers. So when it comes to driving products, especially new products, Amazon is the place where more and more shoppers are going before they go anywhere else online. In terms of Amazon's performance globally, Amazon is the #1 ranked e-commerce retailer in 6 global markets and have more than 20% online share in 4 markets. They represent 6% of global retail growth and 27% of e-commerce sales over the last 10 years. And that's a global number. In the U.S., it's 10% of all retail growth and 1/3 of all e-commerce sales. So clearly, they're a major player. They're one of the major dominant players in the landscape today, and having an Amazon strategy and Amazon approach is going to be critical to almost any e-commerce plan. When we take a step back for a minute at how to think about e-commerce analytics, one of the most driving factors, and this is from my own experience as well as talking to many of our customers, is e-commerce is a really easy store check to do. So brick and mortar, you have to go out, you have to physically check, you might see a sampling of stores. E-commerce, you go online, and for the most part, you're going to get good representation, if not an entire representation of that shelf. What that means is lots of questions, not just from you, not just from your team, but often from executives and others who may pop an email or a phone call or drop into your office and ask questions like, are we winning online? Why is our best product not coming up in search online? And each of those questions can then lead to more questions as you start digging into the research. Are we winning? Are we growing share? How are competitors performing? How are we doing on promotion? If our best product isn't coming up in search, why not? Is it in stock? Is the image correct? Is the copy correct? And so on. At the end of the day, there's a lot of questions around how to measure it and what are the right KPIs. There's no shortage of data today that can measure the shelf and measure impact online. The question is how to organize it, how to prioritize it. And the first thing to understand for those who may be newer to the space is that brick and mortar and e-commerce behave differently when it comes to shopper behavior. The brick and mortar old way, if you will, and still the majority of most manufacturers' revenue is push. We'll push displays out to stores, we do features or promotions in stores, and we count on the shopper walking down the aisle, seeing those end caps, seeing those displays, and making a decision to purchase. E-commerce is completely on its head, where the shopper needs to discover your product. They need to either be going through a retailer's online hierarchy or search or menu, or they're doing a search for specific products or categories. It becomes very much a pull type of environment, which means that every product needs to stand on its own and every product detail page needs to really be optimized to come up in search, to come up in the retailer hierarchy. To organize those metrics, again, if I were to bring the brick and mortar comparison here, most of us are probably familiar with the 4 Ps, the traditional marketing 4 Ps of product, place, price, and promotion. What I want to do is draw a comparison between brick and mortar and e-commerce to set up the rest of the presentation. When it comes to product in the brick and mortar world, it's about which of your company's portfolio of products are we going to sell into the retailer, and counting on supply chain to get the product to the shelf. In e-commerce, it gets more complicated. Many retailers have an endless shelf or an endless shelf opportunity. Availability can be much harder to maintain because of a much leaner supply chain. And becoming even more specialized in what assortment you do make available becomes very important. Whether it's van delivery, whether it's packaged or parcel delivery, can make a very big difference. In the world of Amazon, for example, what works very well on Amazon Fresh is going to be different than what sells well on Amazon.com. From a placement standpoint, in brick and mortar, it's about distribution and shelf placement. So get to as many retailers as possible and get the best placement on the shelf, preferably first in the row, first on the shelf, and top to bottom. Placement becomes more complicated in e-commerce because you can list in multiple categories. In many cases, that's an opportunity, but it does have you constantly thinking about, well, for example, if you're a protein bar, are you in granola bars or are you in protein? In e-commerce, you can be in both, and it becomes important to know what all those placements are, where your products are, where your competitors are showing up as well. And then you have search, of course, you have lists, you have shopper lists, save lists, you have subscriptions like subscribe and save. In the world of price, brick and mortar, we're accustomed to a static price environment. Pricing may be set by the retailer twice a year, maybe 4 times a year. Of course, e-commerce is dynamic, where most retailers are practicing real-time price matching. They're looking at what other online retailers are selling products for, and they have various responses to that, be it matching or otherwise. In the world of promotion, deals and displays, coupons and so on, in the e-commerce world, you have retailer media, digital media, paid search, and paid placements. So it becomes a little bit more complex on the promotion side as well. But where it really gets interesting is what's missing from this, because there's more to e-commerce than the original 4 Ps, even with the adaptation for e-commerce. We add perfect page and performance. So when I talk about perfect page, first of all, that's about packaging. In the brick and mortar world, we rely on the brands to put together excellent packaging. It ships to the shelf, and the product should sell itself from the shelf. In e-commerce, that's incumbent upon those who are managing the e-commerce retailer and who are managing the e-commerce business to set up things like image, title, description, features, all the content, and so on, to make that product page come to life and sell the product as much as possible. It's both a challenge and an opportunity. It's a challenge in that you have to transfer that information from the package to the page. It's an opportunity in that it's an empty canvas, and there's a lot more real estate to put additional content. We also put ratings and reviews under perfect page because at the end of the day, optimizing the page and getting it to show up and rank either in the category or on search terms has a lot to do with how many ratings and the average, the number of reviews and the average ratings. And then finally, in performance, sales and shares, our primary performance metric. In e-commerce, share of search or search rank tends to be the best proxy because it talks about it gives you a sense of what's happening when the shopper is looking for your products or looking for your category, regardless of whether they purchase online or off. You have EPOFs that you get from more and more retailers. In some cases, you can get market share or market share estimations, but search is probably the primary proxy that most use to measure performance. Now, to organize all of this, we've taken that 4 Ps model and pioneered this into a familiar yet powerful framework we call 6 Ps e-commerce intelligence. The first 5 Ps are generally within the manufacturer's control, as I just went through. You can determine which products you want to put into distribution. You can help set the placement and which retailers you want to distribute to. You set the cost of goods that you're selling to the retailer for. Of course, you drive your promotions and you drive your perfect page content. And then finally, the 5 Ps drive the 6th P of performance, which, as I mentioned, was search, sales, and share. Now, 2 common questions we get is, tell me again why ratings and reviews is under perfect page. And the reason for that is, as much as ratings and reviews is about listening to the shopper, at the end of the day, when you're trying to optimize your business, particularly on Amazon, ratings and reviews can make or break a product page. You can have perfect content, and if you have 1 review with 0 stars or 1 star, that page weight is going to be hit really hard and won't surface as well if you had 40 reviews that were 4.5 stars. So that's a common question that we get, and we think it's really important to think of ratings and reviews not just as a sentiment of the shopper, which is important and is important to understand, but also as a function of creating that perfect page. The other piece we're often asked about is search rank. Isn't that a placement metric? And the reason why we say it isn't is because at the end of the day, the search algorithm is controlled by the retailer. Manufacturers are not able to directly say, I want my product to be first in search on the search term for granola bars or for toothpaste. At the end of the day, it's about the net result of driving the other 5 Ps that will contribute to your search rank and share. So we see that as a performance metric, and we've seen a lot of manufacturers out there more and more starting to do the same. Think about this less as more as the end rather than the means, and the other 5 are the means to get to that end, which is a great search rank and a great category rank. So now we're going to get to the meat of this, which is applying that framework to Amazon. And what we're going to do is go back through each of the 6 Ps and talk about a deeper level of analytics that's necessary to really understand and drive your business on Amazon. As many of you may already know, there's a lot more complexity to the Amazon site, a lot more complexity to the Amazon product detail page, and that requires a deeper set of analytics. And that's what we're going to spend the rest of our time talking about. So starting with product, availability to purchase. Yeah, it is absolutely about getting product distributed and shipped to Amazon, keeping them in stock, but there's a lot more that goes on because of the buy box dynamic and because of third-party sellers. Winning the buy box becomes essential to growing revenue and requires a deeper set of analytics to monitor it and to see what's happening in real time where possible. Out of stocks and competitive third-party pricing are 2 main reasons why you might lose buy box, and therefore that constant monitoring is key to success. If you can see in real time when you've lost the buy box, it gives you a better chance of getting after it and solving what the problem is before it's too late. We've seen buy box battles that can happen within minutes where it's shifting back and forth from Amazon to a third-party seller, where there's some kind of a dynamic going on between who owns that buy box. Having those analytics to understand what's happening can help settle that down and reclaim the buy box. As far as assortment goes, again, this is about which products you want to have in distribution on Amazon. The first thing to keep in mind is that what sells offline rarely matches what sells online, particularly at Amazon. And so you might be inclined to say, well, that our best product, our hero product in brick and mortar is not showing up at all on Amazon. Why is that? And it's because there really is a different shipping dynamic, and it also varies based on the channel within Amazon. So what you want to do is start by identifying your best sellers on Amazon, 20% that are driving 80% of your sales. You want to take a look at your highly ranked competitor products as well as the third-party listings that are matched against your products to identify new assortment opportunities. A lot of third-party listings will specifically create a listing that isn't part of the main Amazon listing because they might have a unique proposition, or they just want to have that placement on their own and not battle you or battle retail or battle Amazon for the buy box. So they will create their own special packs or own variety packs. If they're highly ranked, that's something you may want to look at for a new distribution opportunity. So those variety packs, e-commerce only SKUs, ready to ship, which is also called ship to own container, all of those should be considered. And all of that goes into ultimately the analytics behind what is my assortment, how does it compare to my competitors, what are my best sellers, and how are those best sellers performing in terms of, am I keeping the buy box, do I have any pricing issues, am I out of stock, is my content correct? As we move on as well in placement, you could also look at hierarchy, as we move to placement, hierarchy and first party versus third party. Generally speaking, Amazon does allow cross-category placements, and we always say apply liberally. So, and what I mean by that is if there's a justification to be in multiple categories, you want to be there for a couple reasons. One, it helps with the overall product performance in regular search, keyword search, but also there's a lot of categories where you might have, or a lot of times where shoppers on a discovery mission, where there's been a life change, whatever it may be, and they're searching for something for the first time, and rather than using search, they're going through the menu. And so if somebody's, getting into physical fitness and they want to look for protein products, you want a protein bar to be showing up under protein as much as you'd want somebody who's getting into health, who's looking for health bars, to find it under health bars. So think about those multiple applications and use that to your advantage to be in as many places as possible. The other thing to keep in mind is those high-ranking third-party listings. And we put this under placement as well because what will happen is a third party will do whatever they can to not have to compete with Amazon for the buy box. And there's a lot of tricks they'll use to get their own listing. And Amazon has specific policies on this. In general, there should only be one product listing per UPC, but it's impossible for them to police the hundreds of millions of product detail pages that they have globally and in some cases even locally. And so it becomes incumbent on the manufacturer to show or prove to Amazon that there's products that need to be what's called twisted or merged with duplicate listings. And so what I mean by that is I have a great example. There was a skincare product that we've worked on in the past where the #1 result on the brand was a third-party listing, and the Amazon solution, the Amazon listing, was on the third page. By twisting those two together and making the original third-party listing part of the Amazon page, it brought the Amazon page to the first rank. And so you want to think about those kinds of placement opportunities and opportunities to get you surfaced higher. So identifying duplicate listings, identifying opportunities to vary the pages, which I'll come back to in a minute, becomes a key part of that overall placement and success in how you rank within the category. Within the bucket of pricing, I'm quick to mention, because I know that we have a global audience today, that the laws will vary by region, and that's important to keep in mind, of course, what you can or can't do and what you can or can't analyze and how you look at it. But generally, one of the biggest disruptors in e-commerce is that dynamic price. And the fact that on a very frequent basis, as much as every 10 minutes or more, Amazon is going out, they're checking their competitors' pages, and they're matching. And so a lot of manufacturers find it useful to be monitoring those price changes and to understand, okay, based on a certain MSRP, did the price change? Did it drop below that suggested retail price? Who was the first retailer that did that? And were there other retailers who then followed on after that? And you can have first movers, you can have followers, you can have second movers and second followers, and basically trying to understand over the course of that case what's going on, so that you can then develop your own internal strategies on how to manage that product and manage that product's overall equity and health. That gets directly into the area of retailer margin as well. So for those who are new to Amazon, you might be familiar with the term, or who are new to Amazon, you might not know the term CRAP. Can't realize a profit. It is a real term that Amazon uses internally, and the idea is that they will look at products that aren't meeting certain margin thresholds and delist them without any warning. Typically, the way this happens, it goes something like this. You put a product on promotion for the first time, sales shoot up, and all of a sudden the penny profit goes deeply red. And where before it was selling a few pieces a week, the vendor manager might not have noticed it. All of a sudden you're selling hundreds of products a week. They're taking a loss on every sale, and all of a sudden it's hitting their P&L, and that's when it'll hit the crap list and get delisted before you even have a chance to know that there's a problem. So having analytics to understand straight margin as a starting point, and by straight margin what we mean is the average selling price that in the buy box less the cost of goods sold, which is what the manufacturer has sold the product to Amazon for, and is a measure that's available in Vendor Central, is a first early warning system. Now, you might have other funding that's going into this, and depending on the region, those funding opportunities will vary, but it could be merchandising, it could be media, it could be related to supply chain, it could be related to ARA premium, whatever it may be. So there's more to this than just straight margin, but at a minimum, it's a good early warning system to see where there's products that may be at risk. Moving on to the space of promotions, there's two sections to this. One is merchandising and one is media. One of the things we always like to emphasize is fairly well known and held is that Amazon will never do a multi-day hard price drop. And that's different from brick and mortar, where you might run a promotion for a week or for 30 days or for 6 weeks. Instead, you will leverage with them coupons, vendor-powered coupons. You can do promo codes. Or for a true price drop, you could do Gold Box or Lightning deals, but those are time-based. Gold Box is 1 day. Lightning deals are anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. So there are different promotional vehicles available, but that hard price drop isn't available as a multi-day tactic. And the reason for that is Amazon doesn't want to fuel the price wars any more than anybody else does. If other retailers weren't dropping hard price on promotion, we probably wouldn't have as much dynamic pricing issues going on. But the way that they deal with this and the way that they shield from other retailers seeing what their final price is, if you have promo codes or coupons, then it's not as easy for other retailers to see what Amazon's final net price is. Then we get into AMS. So AMS is Amazon Marketing Services. It's a system that launches off Vendor Central, where you can go in and manage your own pay-per-click ads. You can manage your own headline search, product display, and sponsored products. It's self-serve. It's a very easy way to test and learn, and there's a lot of best practices and case studies out there. If you missed our webinar with Melissa Burdick about a month ago, please go to our website. You can listen to the webinar, download the material, and she went into a lot more depth in how to win with AMS. I would also add to this Amazon Media Group, or AMG, certainly will contribute to surround sound. However, it's much more expensive. It doesn't have the direct connection to retail sales like you get from AMS. So most often we see this being purchased through media groups as you would any other digital media buy. Now as we get towards perfect page, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to content because there are so many things to measure and so many things to optimize against. First and foremost, the two most important things on the product detail page is your title and your image. The reason the title is critical is because not only is it a description for the shopper, but search algorithms heavily weight towards keywords that show up in titles. So you can look at things like average title names as well as whether key category terms are present. So for example, if you're a whitening toothpaste, having whitening toothpaste in the title will get you more likely to show up in search than just saying toothpaste, particularly if somebody's looking for a whitening product. And there's plenty of examples like those throughout where adding those keywords, those category keywords to the title helps boost your search results. We don't recommend keyword stuffing. This was something where if you look at a lot of third-party listings, the title might go on 3, 4, 5 rows of words. From what we understand, from what we've heard and what Amazon will say as well, they're not going that far into the title, and there is diminishing returns. So what you really want to do is have the right title with the right keywords that are most relevant to the shopper, the most relevant to your category. The other thing that's really critical is that hero image, and you might have heard a lot about mobile-ready hero images. The standard that Cambridge University put together and has made open source available to anyone who wants to download it. They recently updated the standards, and you can go to the site and download what that is. And we're seeing more and more adoption of mobile-ready hero images across retailers around the world. And there's a couple reasons for this. One is if you're searching for a product on your phone, that product thumbnail is literally the size of your thumb or maybe even smaller. And what we know, though, is that 70 to 80% of the decision whether or not to click is based on that image. So you want to be able to communicate very quickly what that product is, what's the brand, what's the size, what's the variant, and so on. And there's a specific hierarchy in that best practice. So versus the days where you would just take the pack shot and put that up on Amazon, there's more and more adoption of mobile-ready hero images. Now, I'm talking broadly across most retailers. Amazon doesn't appear to have adopted it yet. Hopefully they're testing it in certain pockets and we'll see them adopt it soon, see them adopted as well in the near future. But in the meantime, you still want to optimize that image as much as possible to make it as legible as possible within Amazon standards. When it comes to secondary images, you really do want to fill up those secondary placements. What can happen on occasion is a third-party listing can get twisted or merged in with your primary listing, and those third-party images can end up populating those spaces if they're not filled by the manufacturer. And you may end up having poor quality images or irrelevant images. There's lots of funny stories out there. I've seen Zyrtec products with a director's chair. I've seen Listerine products with a picture of a lion. So you get kind of weird things that can happen in the noise of Amazon. So the best way to just combat all of that is to make sure that those 5 secondary image spots are full and that you have a video on the page as well. I recently came across a situation where I was texting my wife the gold box deal of the day, and when I sent it from the product detail page on Amazon, what populated in the SMS was the video, not the product image. So when it sent to her, she was seeing the video of the product, not the primary image. So you can see Amazon experimenting more and more with video and figuring out how to create that engagement with shoppers. I mentioned variation before. It absolutely can improve page rank. So if you have 3 different pages versus 1 page that's variated with 3 products, the goodness or the weight of that page is going to be much higher. You'll move much higher in the search rank. The reviews will combine. So if you have 40 reviews on each, now you have 120 reviews. and they will all feed off each other and help push that page higher and higher. Now, there's a limit, there's diminishing returns on this. You have to be careful and you have to think about this in terms of a shopper decision tree. So one example would be in pet care, dog food versus puppy food. You might not want to variate those two because people searching for puppy food are generally looking for puppy, and if they're looking for adult dog food, they're just searching for dog food. And so you want to take the opportunity to show them the variations in flavors and sizes within that stage of their pet's life. There's other examples out there as well, particularly in form, if you're in a category where you have powders and liquids, and so on, where if you have, in your decision tree that a certain form is preferred, vary it within the form and not across the forms. And then enroll products and subscribe and save wherever it makes sense. This has to be a situation. Amazon's always going to make sure that there's a steady supply chain, that there's no risk of going out of stock, that they've had a consistent supply of it over time. But also, kind of use common sense. If it's a product that's a once-a-year purchase, probably doesn't make sense for subscribe and save. You'll end up spending money on it, and it won't yield any good returns. You really want those products that have a fast purchase cycle, 30, 60, or 90 days. And then once you lock them into the subscription, you've got that shopper until something changes and they might want to change, but otherwise you've got them locked in. And then as we move down the page, 5 or 6 bullets. Again, same thing with third-party listings. If you don't fill all the bullets, there's a chance that the page will auto-populate with bullets from other third-party listings or from elsewhere. The best way to maintain control is to write those bullets yourself and have them in there. We also know from eye tracking research that the first word of every bullet is critical, that a shopper scanning the page will see the first couple words but might not read the bullet all the way across. So you really want hard-hitting, action-based bullets that start with either an action or a benefit, so it's basically an action, benefit, feature statement along those lines, so that first word really communicates value and gets the shopper to keep reading and communicates the value of the product. Further on below, make sure all your content fields are complete and free of typos. That's product description, and you want to have descriptions of a certain length. Everyone has different standards, anywhere from 200 to 300 words. You want to make sure your ingredients, your warnings, your directions, where applicable, all of those are there and compliant with what they're supposed to be, particularly when you get into ingredients and warnings and allergens. And checking those pages and having a means to check those pages for those kinds of critical information is really important in that regard. Okay, and then the other part of Perfect Page that I talked about was shopper-generated content. This used to just be ratings and reviews, but Amazon now has questions and answers, and there's a number of different things that you want to do. A lot of times it can feel like, well, it's shopper-generated, there's nothing the manufacturer can do. There actually is a number of things you can do to optimize the page. So first of all, any products that don't have 20 to 25 reviews, you want to look at ways to drive it. The Amazon buying program is one of the easiest, most popular ways. There is a cost to it, but that gets the product into the hands of anywhere to 50 to 100 Amazon reviewers who are highly ranked reviewers to review your product. You can use your own CRM efforts to ask shoppers to leave reviews. There's a number of different tactics like that to drive reviews on Amazon. When it comes to 1- and 2-star reviews, more and more we see manufacturers with some kind of a response plan in place, whether it's through the customer care center, social media listening platform, or social media standard operating procedure, whatever it may be. They're looking at those 1- and 2-star reviews and they are responding to them. What it shows the shopper is, you care, you're listening, you want to solve their problem, but it also shows other shoppers that are coming to the page, hey, this is a manufacturer that really cares about their product and is really doing their best to, address these issues. The other thing that helps in this case is word cloud analysis, because that's going to help you identify keywords that shoppers are using to talk about your products. And that you can run that both on ratings and reviews and on questions and answers to understand the most common things that shoppers are saying or asking about your product. When it comes to Q&A, absolutely have that plan to be responding to those as well. There's no reason why the manufacturer can't respond to those questions. And so having a standard operating procedure in place is critical to doing that, but then, have that plan and do it consistently. And then finally we get to sales and share. So as far as On this slide, I'm primarily focusing on sales. I didn't go too much into well, sorry. Oops, I jumped a slide. We'll go back. As far as performance goes, search, sales, and share are the three main ways to measure performance. Of course, on Amazon, when it comes to search, it's all about what are your 4, 5, maybe 8 at most category keywords that you want to rank on search, and make sure that you're showing up on the first page. In some cases, you want to focus on being in the first 5, some maybe even in the first 3, because we know that past 3 shopper attention trails off and they won't go much beyond it. So working on those category terms, optimizing the page, and working your way up to search rank is critical. When it comes to sales and share, understanding your business trends, we like to talk about versus prior period. E-commerce is growing so fast. Looking a year ago is the more traditional way to look at sales performance, but you also want to know what's happening versus the prior periods, because you, in theory, should be growing every month, month over month, following Amazon sales rate, which is anywhere from 15 to 30%, depending on the quarter. Obviously, you'll have a big spike in Q4. Holiday always has a big spike, and you want to be looking at that versus prior year. But that prior period and prior year are very relevant metrics here. Sales progress towards your goals, of course, and then the bottom left, bestseller velocity. This again goes back to that search rank as well as category rank. Knowing which of your products are among the best sellers, and whether or not they're moving up or down. That will give you an early warning as well as to whether or not there's a new brand on the block who's rising fast in the ranks and represents a potential threat. So not just looking at that statically, but also understanding the velocity or the movement of items moving up and down. And then finally, category share. It's a tough one when it comes to category share. On the one hand, most manufacturers are accustomed to reporting market share. The problem with that in e-commerce is that market share is based on a fixed shelf, a fixed number of icimes, and what your share of that fixed shelf is. And e-commerce, particularly on Amazon, it's an endless shelf, or it can be endless. And so market share becomes a little bit of a dicier proposition to report on. And that's why we see a lot of best practice manufacturers. They might report market share, but they're more importantly focusing on search rank or search share in parallel to it. And then finally, just wrapping up, we talked about how we apply the same 6 Ps to all retailers. When it comes to product, and I'm just going to run through this fairly quickly, in general, focusing on how many product listings you have and taking advantage of that endless shelf where it makes sense. And then on those top 20% of products, making sure that you do everything you can to reduce out of stocks and stay in stock on those retailer sites. It's much more challenging in e-commerce because of the leaner supply chain. And where retailers have a marketplace strategy, like Amazon, like Walmart, Tmall in Asia, there's other and Amazon marketplaces in Europe as well, have a strategy. You have to have some thought about whether third parties represent a challenge or an opportunity, and how you're going to address it, either by trying to suppress them or working with those who are reputable. From placement, again, this is about increasing your brand presence, making your product as findable as possible, and having your product listed in as many places as possible. There are some retailers online that limit you to only one placement, so there it becomes important making sure that you're in the right one. We did some work in the past where we found some flavored spirits, wine coolers, were showing up under beer instead of flavored wine coolers. So if somebody was browsing flavored wine cooler, they weren't going to see the product. And contrarily, those looking in beer probably weren't interested in the flavored wine cooler. So you use that menu reporting to understand where you're listed, where your competitors are listed, and make sure that it's clean. From a pricing standpoint, again, have that online pricing monitoring going on within the bounds of what's legal and what's allowed, but understanding what your products are doing, trends and fluctuations, and understanding what you need to do to potentially adjust for that. Under promotions, there's a lot of tools now, including with Clavis, that can be used to validate promotions compliance. A lot of times with e-commerce retailers, you kind of have to trust them and whatnot. They're not providing screenshots. It's not like a circular or a display in store where you can visually confirm it. So having technology to validate promotions compliance, that it's there for the duration of time committed to, is really important. and then understanding what your competitors are doing, a little bit more difficult in the online space without technology to do it for you at scale, and then use that to optimize ongoing. From a perfect page standpoint, again, outside of Amazon, sometimes there aren't as many content opportunities, but it's always going to be the same thing. Have that title optimized, have a strong mobile optimized hero image, and have all of your other fields complete: descriptions, feature bullets if they have it, ingredients, and warnings. And finally, under performance, this is where you're measuring the results from optimizing the other 5 Ps. Where you're looking at both your search rank on key category search terms, your share of first page on those key terms, and then of course your point of sales and your market share where available. And last but not least, what I just wanted to mention was if you're newer to e-commerce and it feels overwhelming, we always recommend start with a crawl, walk, run approach. And with crawl, what that means is, first of all, focus on your 80 for the 20, right? What are the 20% of items driving 80% of your sales, and start setting some goals within each of the 6 Ps that you want to attain, and prove that out, prove that result, and then that feeds on itself, and you can gradually learn your way into it to build your own playbooks. Those who work with Clavis, our e-commerce consultants, offer a lot of advice in this space and can share best practices in various ways to help move from that crawl to walk to run space. So with that, I'll say thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you joining us today. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, you can submit them in the chat box, and I see that we've had a few come in. If you have any other questions that we didn't get to, please go ahead and enter those now, and I'm going to just take 30 seconds to do our Clavis commercial while Paul is queuing up those questions. For those not familiar with Clavis Insight, e-commerce monitoring analytics is a space that we pioneered back in 2011 and really rolled out in 2012. In 2014, we established a best-in-class standard for e-commerce analytics. And this year, 2017, we have a lot of exciting innovation going on as well. If you're interested in hearing more, definitely reach out to us. We'd love to share with you the latest and greatest of what we're working on. If you're not familiar with Clavis, our proprietary technology goes out and basically audits online stores at scale. Technology goes out, visits retailers anywhere in the world, captures whatever the shopper has potential to see. We can do that for desktop, mobile web, or app, and presents that data in standardized, organized, and actionable insights and analytics like you saw screenshots of today. And then the last piece is related specifically to Amazon, and you saw pieces of this throughout the presentation today, is our new Clavis Insight One View for Amazon. It pulls together insights from data from multiple places, Vendor Central, AMS, Amazon, Clavis, and brings it together over 200 points of actionable analytics. Today it's available in the US. That was our first market. It will be rolling to additional markets in the very near future. So if you would like more information, definitely reach out and we'd be happy to share more with you. And with that, Paul, I'll turn it back to you for Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you, Danny. The first one I could actually take was that a few here about the webinar recording and slides. Yes, they will be available to you, and that should be available within the next 2 business days. So certainly do make sure to be on the lookout for that. Here's one sort of concerning me about Amazon, innovation. So with Alexa and other voice ordering devices, how can brands optimize their presence to make sure they're not losing out on this opportunity?
Yeah, so in the U.S., Amazon rolled out, it's probably a year and a half now, Amazon Choice. So what that means is if you say, Alexa, I got to be careful because we have Alexas here in our office. I can't say that too loud, but if you say, Alexa, order diapers, one of 3 things is going to happen. If I've ordered diapers in my recent history, Alexa is going to read off and say, do you want 105 count, size 3 diapers of whatever brand it might have been, and you say yes, and she'll order it for you. The second thing that can happen if you don't have it in the order history is it'll say Amazon's choice is whatever brand, 105 count, size 3. Do you want me to buy this for you? Do you want to buy this? Now, if there isn't an Amazon Choice set up, most categories have them now, but if you kind of confuse Alexa or she doesn't know what category it is, she's going to go based on category rank. So it might put in the highest ranked diaper, for example, search rank, based on that search term. So what's the #1 ranked diaper product? So if you want to stay ahead in voice search, First of all, you definitely want to know who's Amazon's choice in the category. It does change. It's a bit volatile. It can change from month to month. There's a number of articles out there now with hypotheses on what drives Amazon's designation as Amazon choice. We know ratings and reviews has a lot to do with it. We know stable supply chain has a lot to do with it. And then, of course, the overall rank in sales in the category is another key factor. And then beyond that, experiment with Alexa, ask different questions. The other thing that they're doing a lot more of now is you can promote on Alexa. So they might have Echo-only or Alexa-only deals for certain days, and you can ask Alexa what's on deal today, and it might be exclusive to that channel. So ask your vendor manager about those opportunities also.
Great. Going back to the search topic, so do you know if the Amazon search algorithm factors A+ detail content at all?
Yeah, that one's a little bit tougher to tease out because there's no question that in some way it must. Amazon's search algorithm probably has somewhere between 20 to 30 different factors that can be tuned in different ways depending on the category, and that page completeness or page health definitely factors in. From what we've seen, from what we understand, the keywords within A+ content doesn't fuel search, but the presence of A+ content on the page does give the page a boost. Generally, the statistics are anywhere from 8 to 12% increase in sales over time from adding A+ content. Can be a little tricky to manage, but those are numbers that Amazon has put out as well. So I would say in general, absolutely you want A+ pages at least on your top 20% of items, if not across all of them. It definitely appears to help boost search, but not necessarily in terms of keywords.
Great. And you touched upon this a tad earlier, but if you're new to e-commerce and are selling on Amazon in general, what do you think that first lever is that we should concentrate on?
That first P of product is the first place to start. At the end of the day, if your product isn't in stock, nothing else really matters. You can have the best product detail page in the world. If you're out of stock, if you lose the buy box, you might not come up in search, or if you do, you're not going to get the sale. So the first thing to do is to really take a look at where your products are vulnerable, where you're having out of stock issues on a regular basis, and work with supply chain and with Amazon to boost that. Obviously it's 100% sales lift when you go from out of stock to in stock. So not only is it the best place for sales overall, it's the easiest one to measure and see the impact from.
Great. Here's somewhat of an omni-channel question concerning Amazon. Amazon's recently moving to add a brick-and-mortar best-selling items online. Do you have a point of view as to why they're doing this? If it's the Amazon shopper is traditionally looking for different pack sizes.
Yeah, so I think that as you think about, Amazon's got a lot of different things going on, a lot of different things that they're testing. If you are following the news, yesterday was the first day of that Amazon officially owned Whole Foods, and in probably an unprecedented level of integration that we've ever seen in a retailer acquisition, you walked into Whole Foods and there was an Echo display. And it was kind of funny because some of the displays were like natural foods, good for you, and then it was like a big Echo, Amazon Echo display. But I think part of that is making sure that they have the most competitive offerings, that if there is a product in brick and mortar that's doing very well, that Amazon can offer it in addition, because they do want to capture the entire wallet. They do want to capture the entire basket. If they see something that's doing well offline, then they're probably going to look and ask about, well, how can I get that product? And how can we feature it on Amazon as well?
Great. And this one is, somewhere on the promotion side. So what % breakout of a marketing budget would you recommend for, AMS versus AMG?
Oh, that's a tough one. That really can be pretty wide-ranging. In general, we've seen trade funding rates. They tend to be around, I would say the desired area is always around 7 to 9%. Investment level might be 12 to 15%. But when you bring in AMG in particular, if you're counting that as trade, which hopefully they're not, hopefully you can count that as media spend, it can go much, much higher. But it's definitely worth experimenting with AMS, and you can start really small and scale it up and determine what's the right balance of funding for those. I wouldn't put AMG in the trade marketing budget. If you're asking about marketing budget, you know, that's probably in the area of, I would say, probably 10 to 20% or so of your overall budget, just given how much research shoppers are doing on Amazon.
Great. Yeah, well, we like to give you a hard one for the last one. Keep your toes. Keep everyone their toes. Great. Well, it looks like we have reached the end of our presentation today. Just a couple of quick items before we move on. We certainly are having a fairly busy fall season, next couple of months here, hosting and attending a number of e-commerce related events, from webinars to 2 summits, one in Boston, one in London, as well as e-commerce trade events in Chicago and London. Certainly be on the lookout for more information about seeing us at these upcoming shows. And also one final request, there is a survey which will appear as you exit the webinar. Please do complete the survey and let us know your thoughts to help us you know, improve upon our programming and offer you webinar and thought leadership content which best serves you. As a special thank you for that, you will receive a copy of our newest white paper, you know, driving online sales with 6 P's e-commerce intelligence. And then you'll also have an opportunity to request more information on Clavis and our Amazon capabilities, or request a meeting at one of our upcoming shows. Thank you all once again for attending, and you will receive a copy of the webinar recording and deck within the next 2 days. And for those who complete the survey, you'll also be receiving a copy of that white paper within the next 2 days. Thank you all. Thank you, Danny, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.